Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major one is just a couple of days away. The OpTic guys are giving their perspectives as the #1 seed going into the tournament, how they expect to fare. Kenny talking about his search and destroy performance. That's definitely going to be a topic of conversation in Madrid in a couple of days. Huke giving his thoughts as well. And Shotzzy saying that he'd love to play the Los Angeles Thieves this tourney, but reckons in the final, FaZe is the more likely option. Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. Starting here, Dashy is having a good time flying business. Well, I guess this is a business seat rather than first. I'm honestly not 100% sure. Depends on the airline and stuff, the way they've got it configured. Business seems to be more popular product nowadays anyway than first class. And lots of, airlines are having more business seats than their first. Whatever. The reality is Dashy's balling out and, I don't know, the #1 seed for the tournament, right? Okay, I'm sure they booked the tickets a while ago, so it's not like that's exactly what's made their mind up here, but Shotzzy was talking about it as well. Here he is, priority business class. So people in the replies, I thought this is a pretty funny one from HyDra. Looks like a guy that owns houses. We know that Shotzzy was getting into some drama recently because he was saying, like, these pro players that have been around in the league for 5-10 years, how have you not got a single asset to your name rather than, flittering all the money away in various things. So, look, I'm not sure exactly Shotzzy's paid for this flight, but still, OpTic, they won the World Championship last year. They are flying good out to Madrid. And it does make sense because if you sleep well on the flight, may improve your performance over the course of the weekend. Some teams will not be flying business, that is for sure. I wonder what the Falcons guys are doing, just because we know they've got bread, but obviously they're not necessarily going to spend the bread everywhere all the time for no reason. If they were going to do that, Falcons would already have tried to get Simp probably, but they've not done. They've kept, they're easing into the Call of Duty world. Does it mean that Clay and the boys aren't flying out there by private jet? I'm not so sure, but yeah, Clay's getting out there to Madrid for the first time, and most of the players actually either flew last night or they flew even Sunday night. I think Scrappy was on his flight on Sunday. So the teams that played Sunday, they, I think, probably flew on the Monday or whatever. But the teams that played earlier on, they decided to actually get out there early, which does make sense if you can actually do exactly that. The tournament gets underway in a couple of days' time. I'm flying out there in a few hours' time. Obviously, for me, it's just a quick hop over the English Channel, which is pretty set, and France as well. You know what I mean? Pretty sensational stuff. It's been a long time since there's been an event in Europe. Okay, Riyadh was gettable for us in Europe, more so than the events in the States, but still, it's been a long time. It's been literally 5 years since there's been an event on European soil. It was February 2020, I believe, when the most recent London event was. And before that, there were very frequent events in Europe. There used to be one in ESWC in Paris, like almost every single year in the CWL days, 2015, 16, 17 years like that. There was consistent UK events across. I mean, they used to run like little small European tournaments in Birmingham and in Manchester and in some other cities as well. Obviously up in Blackpool back in the day, famously. And there was London events very frequently, but that all fell away when the CDL came around. So we're back on European soil. It's going to be fun to have it. And obviously Adam who's been involved in the organisation of this event from the Toronto side. And when he tweeted this, the full schedule wasn't here, but actually it was shortly afterwards. Before we get into that, this I thought was pretty funny. I'm not really sure what your guys' thoughts on this are, but we know that KOI are technically running the tournament. It's Toronto, but it's KOI. They're part of the same thing, whatever. And, well, in reply to this, Heretics, who are, of course, a Spanish-based team and organisation based in Madrid, effectively, they've been putting up posters nearby the venue, basically to say, like, wake up, you're in Madrid, Madrid is the Heretics' house, as in, this is our event, not yours. Now, I don't want to clown them too hard, because they are running an event again, which few teams are actually doing. They are running an event, Heretics, in what I am going to call Fort Lauderdale. It's not Miami, and it wasn't the best event last year, but they are running one, so fair enough. And I think initially Toronto wanted to host this in Barcelona, but instead it was, I think, venue related reasons. It's ended up being in Madrid, but still it feels a bit strange for the Spanish team to be kind of like clowning the organisation that's actually running an event in their home country and city in some respects, whereas they're not doing it. Like, sure, they're running an event, but they're running their event in Miami, okay, Fort Lauderdale, in Florida, to say the very least, where the organisation used to be called Florida Mutineers, obviously before they took things over. But yeah, Toronto are going out of their way on some extent to actually run an event in Europe. It's been a talking point for them for the last couple of years. They wanted to do one in Europe. They wanted to have that opportunity for the fans. They are partnered with Spanish teams. So Toronto are the org that stepped up to the plate and is making this whole thing happen. Heretics haven't, and yet they're getting clowned on somehow. But yeah, long may it continue with it. Like, hopefully the event goes well. I know that logistically, it is going to be a challenge, right? Like, the guys that are organising the events, some of them based out of Toronto, aren't necessarily on the ground at the venue. It's a venue we've never been to before. There's other complicating factors as well in play. I don't think it was their first choice venue, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think it's going to be an entertaining few days for good, and I'm sure there are going to be some problems as well, but we'll solve the problems when the times come. Now, these are the dates and the scheduling for the matches. Of course, it's a European tournament, so for you guys in the States, which is most of you, it will be earlier than normal. And some of these will be good for some of you, some of them won't. I mean, if you guys are at work or at school or whatever during the day, then going to be a bit of a challenge to watch on the Thursday, Friday, I'd imagine. But as I said, for years, you know, Call of Duty fans in Europe, we've got to stay up until the early hours of the morning to watch. So it's great. I mean, from a European fan perspective, those in the UK are going to be loving this. Matches starting at 3 p.m. local time. Like, it's going to be pretty sensational, I think, on most of the days. Now, that's in the UK. It's 4 p.m. Central European time in Madrid. And it's a pretty late start. I know that they're probably doing it as late as they can so that they can hopefully get as much US viewership as possible. It's going to be starting at 7 a.m. Pacific time every day, 10 a.m. Eastern. So, you know, it's not absolutely at the crack of dawn for those on the East Coast, but it's still very early for the US. But they physically, as far as I understand, cannot start it any later. I know that in Spain, generally, given like, you know, the siesta, I'm not even sure if the siesta really applies when it's like winter. I don't know, like you guys, I'm sure, are more knowledgeable on this than me. But in Spain, generally, you know, people like to have a nice afternoon nap and don't really do too much until the late afternoon, evening. And obviously that makes sense when it's super hot in the summer, but when it's 5-10 degrees or whatever it's going to be, this is Celsius, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, you know, like 50 or something. Maybe that doesn't apply to the same degree, but whatever. They're going to start the event reasonably late on into the afternoon, but the venue, as I'd imagine has been the case in many venues over the last few years, will have some required features in terms of when the games have to be done by. Because I looked this up and it seems like the venue is owned and operated by an entity basically owned by Madrid's governance to some degree. It's like Madrid's, like, I don't know, conventions and something like that anyway. And usually when that's the case, there is some sort of like limit on the amount of working hours that is the case. It was the case in Boston over the last couple of years, local regulations in terms of how long the staff can actually work, because it's not just like all the staff there are working for the Call of Duty League. There's, you know, security staff, in-venue staff managing, you know, the equipment and other factors like this, people selling the beers, whatever, right? So, you know, there are issues with that. It tends to be the case. And I think that it's going to be, like, it's a later finish than we ever see in America, right? Because in America, the events are starting earlier. Not that much earlier local time. Some of the days start at 3 p.m. local, whatever. But this is 4 p.m. local time start time. It is going to be a late finish on many of the days. It's scheduled to finish at 10 p.m. local time every day, which is, you know, 2 p.m. in the afternoon if you're on Pacific, which is fine. But the problem is, if it goes too late, there might be issues with making sure the matches get done on time. Hoping it's going to be all okay, but I think they might be playing with fire here to some extent, because we know what happens on LAN when we actually did have a LAN tournament, which was K-Sun's tournament a couple of months ago when the game had first come out, and it was horrific in terms of like lobby crashes and all this. So if we get any of that, it's going to be a hard time. But I'm hoping all is going to go well. Not going to try and jinx anything. OpTic, they come in as the #1 seed. They play on Friday, or the Thursday. It's the final game of the day against, of course, Miami Heretics. It's Thieves Ravens before that. Ultra, Surge, and FaZe Boston to start out the tournament. And Kenny was talking about, wow, back on LAN. This is the key feature, really, with OpTic, because they're the #1 seed. Does it make them the favourites? It makes them very close to the favourites. They beat Ultra, who are 6-0, relatively comfortably. FaZe are still going to be tough to beat, and of course we know that OpTic versus FaZe last year was a very one-sided scoreline in the favour of FaZe, but that may be a different story this year. It's certainly been a different story in the past. So Kenny's looking forward to getting back on LAN. I think there's no doubt in my eyes that Kenny will play better this tournament than he has done online in recent times. We just tend to always see that. The question really will come down to like Huke the other way around, whether Huke is going to be as strong on LAN than online. We've generally seen that as a trend over the last few years, but this game does seem a bit different for Huke, right? He's absolutely cooking on this title. The game suits him really well. He's got Shotzzy alongside him as well. So I think there's a good chance that Shotzzy and Huke can keep up their very, very high level getting to LAN, and if Kenny gets a bit better, Dashy, you can always count on him. So I think that it's going to be a good tournament for OpTic, and they should be well positioned to make a serious run. A couple of things I wanted to share for you guys, one of which was this, where Shotzzy was talking about in his post-game interview, who do you want to play in the grand finals, and of course Thieves would be the optimal team to play, maybe a team that OpTic think they can beat. They did beat them online, although it was very close. They had to make a 5-1 comeback game 5 to actually make that happen. But he reckons FaZe are the more likely team they'll match up against, but also in the press conference that the OpTic guys said yesterday, these are some of their words on how they expect to improve for the major.
Listen, Shotzzy, you've been more direct and honest with the community and everybody lately, and I want to ask you, who do you want to play in the finals at this first major, in front of that Madrid crowd?
I want to play against Thieves, but if I had to guess, it's probably going to be FaZe.
But that was like the main thing for me throughout this whole stage, was like figuring out my SnD and kind of figuring out what I like to do and what I want to do. And, you know, as a whole, like getting our communication and our chemistry up in like SnD.
I guess we're going down the line. Yeah, next.
I might as well.
Sure, yeah. I like this game, so I mean, I feel like it's easy to get on every day and just grind, especially with these guys. So I mean, individually, I think I'm playing. I think I'm playing good. I hope I'm playing good. Maybe SnD's dipped down a little bit, but we're winning them, so that's all that matters.
Winning them.
Yeah.
I'm more of like a team player guy. Like obviously, like I've been playing really good individually, but at the end of the day, all I care about is winning. So it's all that matters.
Yeah.
Anything, Dad?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been doing my thing.
So we know that Shotzzy's been at an incredible level so far this season, and Shotzzy won't be ever really the most consistent player, as in, well, his numbers can be very good, but he'll be up and down a little bit, because some maps he finds himself in positions where he can just fry. Other maps he is really just trying to make space for the team, and you're never going to get, like, insanely consistent 1.2s out of Shotzzy, although, to be fair, this season, I think we have seen a lot of that. I wouldn't necessarily expect that to continue. I think that Shotzzy's impact will always be very high. His KD may flip-flop to some degree, depending on just how the series is going for him, but as he says, he's focused on the winning, he's going to do whatever it takes to make that happen, and the nice thing for Shotzzy is that even though his numbers have been incredible so far this year, they don't necessarily have to be when Huke is playing as well as he's done, and Dashy's playing as well as he's done. The question really is, okay, Kenny's Search and Destroy hasn't been very good. If they can level that up, that's going to be a big momentum swing. To me, for this tournament, I think it's the control that OpTic, that may make or break OpTic's tournament, because I think OpTic's hardpoint is in no doubt how good it is. I think OpTic's Search and Destroy is also very good. It's probably better their search than it usually is for a tournament. I think Huke's made some strides there. The team is, you know, if they go to 5, I think OpTic can be confident they'll win. I don't think that was always the case last year, certainly against a team like FaZe. Like, if OpTic go 5 with FaZe, I think they'll be, you know, very confident they can win the series. The same thing happened to Thieves. They went down 5-1, but they still managed to win it. So, yeah, I'm not saying their Search and Destroy is unbelievable, but it is, and especially with Kenny probably being better on LAN, it is a talking point. My feeling is that, especially if they do play FaZe, it's going to come down a lot to the control, because, you know, maybe it's 1-1 after the first 2 maps. Absolutely plausible. I do think that FaZe are the favoured control team right now. So either OpTic need to improve in that mode, which I think they have some room for improvement there, or they just need to be so good in the other modes that it doesn't matter, and they close out the series 3-1, 3-2. Either of which are plausible. Control, it's interesting because it is the least important game mode, right? Like, there is only one map in the series that's Control, there are 2 of the others. But Control still feels very important because it is the momentum swing. You got up 2-0, all of a sudden they win the Control, and then, like with OpTic the other day, they lost the Control to Toronto, and then they had to, you know, play well in the hardpoint, which they did, they closed out the series, but had they lost that, then all of a sudden you're thinking, oh, game 5, are we going to get reverse swept? Everyone's going to clown us. So, you know, Control is still important. Very much into your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section. I'm kind of impressed by this prediction here from Looney. Back on the 19th of October 2024, rumours at the time around a Barcelona event. It eventually got moved to Madrid, but yeah, it is true. Again, Heretics playing OpTic in the first round. You simply cannot get away from it. So very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.